Okay, there we go. Much better. All right, let's try this again. So sorry. I didn't unmute the correct microphone, so sorry about that. We'll start over. Thank you for joining Link tonight. It is December 10th. Appreciate you being here, and looking forward to jumping into the One Ring. I'm going to warn you now, I don't have a ton of experience with the One Ring. I've played it a couple times as a player at events like Origins and Gen Con. I have not GM'd it yet, although I would very much like to, because quite frankly, I love the system, would very much like to play it. I'm a huge fan of The Lord of the Rings. It's my favorite. My favorite book is actually The Hobbit, but my favorite movie series is The Lord of the Rings. Absolutely, huge fan. So I'm really excited about this system. Now I'm going to show you a couple things that I have here. The first is the box set of the original first edition One Ring, and so I still have this. I actually have it autographed by the creator, Francisco. So very excited to have this. Have definitely read through all of this, and it's still fairly relevant. So it has inside of it, we've got a few things inside this box. We have, see if I can open it where you can see it. There's a little tray with dice in it, and then there is, I'm gonna pull these out. We have a couple maps. Keep going. There is the Lore Master's book. So the Lore Master is the person who is running the game, so that's cool. And then there is the Adventurer's book. And as I mentioned, signed inside. Picked this up at Gen Con the year it came out, which was super, super cool. I have a couple printed out character sheets inside of here actually as a placeholder. But this is not what we're going to be working on today. I just wanted to show it because this is kind of how the One Ring got started. This is the very first version I played was actually that same year. I played at, I think it was at Gen Con that year that I played. So this goes back in the box, and I'll show you the next couple of things. I really like the addition of the dice tray into the sleeve is pretty cool. So that goes in, and we can move on to the next item, which is something I picked up from the Kickstarter. It is the One Ring starter set. It has a few cool things in it. As we open the box, this is from the Free League. So inside the box cover, we have kind of a little bit of a GM screen. We've got degrees of success, dice roll modifiers, conditions, and stuff inside of there. So the box actually serves a purpose. We have the dice. The dice are special, and I'll kind of walk you through those. I went ahead, this is how they come in the set. I also purchased an additional set, so we have light and dark for the players versus the GM, because I kind of like the vibe of that. Unfortunately, the very first edition of these dice had a misprint, so they sent me fixes to these. Hey Todd, how's it going? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Also in here, let's see, we've got a few little things. We've got some travel roll. They're like the size and shape of a coaster, but they're little cheat guards. We have actual item cards like dagger, great shield. There. There is a map. So this is, if you buy the starter set, I'm just showing this off because if you get the starter set, I want you to know kind of what you're signing up for. We have this lovely map. I've got to pull pretty far back to kind of even begin to see this. It's a very nice map, two-sided. So there we have that region. We have on the flip side, we have the, looks like the Shire, South Farthing. Yep. So we've got the Shire zoom-in map on the flip side. So it's very cool, folds up. It just keeps on going. We have some starter characters. We have Drodo Baggins. We have Esmeralda Took. We have Lobelia Bracegirdle, Paladin Took the Second, Primula Brandybuck, Balin Son of Fundin. We have a dwarf. We have Bilbo Baggins. So these are kind of characters to get started. We have some adventures. We'll look at this maybe in a little bit. We have a very abbreviated version of the rules. which we'll get into. And finally, we have the Shire, which is a kind of a location book with details about the Shire for playing the game. I have a number of other location books actually on my bookshelf. I'm not going to get into this today. If we end up doing another stream on this, I'll probably get into one of the locations. We also, and the inside of the bottom of the box is also a map. This is the Shire map in a short form, like compressed form. But I love the fact that they actually use the inside of the box like that. Makes me really happy they did that. It's a cool concept. One other thing before we get into this, I'm going to pull out also part of the Kickstarter, though I think it's still maybe available, is the deluxe edition of the book. I love the red leather bound version, but this is the One Ring source book. Inside you have the map on the inside. It's very cool. Just the details, especially of this book, it really helps reinforce the setting, quite frankly. The table of contents, one of the things I love about the table of contents is it's actually illustrated. You can really see what's going on there. It kind of give you a little bit of an overview. They have a section on the lore master, what you're going to do there, a little bit about the world, which some of us know the world fairly well, but it doesn't mean that there's not still a lot of detail, right? So as much as I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, I absolutely am not one of those people who has the entire Silmarillion memorized, right? So that's not going to happen. I'm doing awesome, Todd. I'm really excited to get to kind of play around with Lord of the Rings tonight, honestly. Take a little bit of a break from the coding side of my life. All right, so I'm going to look through this big book just a little bit and share a few things. We may eventually get into setting up a few details inside of LoreLink. The reason we're here, of course, LoreLink is our TTRPG campaign management software. So when I am planning a new campaign or planning sessions within an existing campaign or an adventure, I am always using LoreLink to help organize and plan all that. Right now, at the moment, I'm kind of just walking through a little bit about what the One Ring is all about, but I would like to get into the point where we're doing session planning. At some point in time, I would really like to run a One Ring adventure, so maybe that's something we can do later in the year if there is any interest from everybody to do that. So again, the lore master is the role of the game master, so they're kind of running the world lore. We also, lore master for LoreLink is perfect. Anyway, well, we have one sign up, 20, awesome. So then you have the player heroes, is what they're called. So the players are each playing protagonist heroes. The structure of the game is a little bit different from some others. This is actually the thing that's closest to is probably Pendragon, which is another game that I've been covering just a little bit that I really enjoy. You kind of have this in Pathfinder and D&D a little bit, but you very distinctly have adventure phases and fellowship phases. And so the passage of time and downtime is very pronounced and very prescribed in this compared to, I feel, the way most of the time we do things in other types of games like D&D and Pathfinder, where downtime activity is purely up to the GM and the players to choose how much they want to lean into. There's some exceptions. There's some different adventure paths that maybe lean into that more than others, but it is a core part of the game in the One Ring like it is in Pendragon. So the adventuring phase is played as a series of scenes. You're going to connect them sequentially into a wider narrative arc, and the scene is a single episode focusing on the company, which is your adventuring party, facing a challenge, preparing for something, recovering from something, and it is really, there's a lot of things that are up to the lore master to help frame those scenes and tie them into the wider narrative that's happening, maybe other things that are happening in the world, other things you've done up to this point. This is very much a story building adventure. It's one of the things that I like about it. So I feel it's important to point out that when I started role-playing, I was very much into the gritty dice rolling, dungeon crawling type of adventuring. And now today, I still enjoy that stuff, but today I really like the storytelling, character development types of things. And this is a great game for that. It lives inside of a very rich world, and we get to do that type of work. So when we're framing a scene, the Lore Master will describe the location where the action is taking place, who's there among the player heroes, who's there among any adversaries or allies, and then define the challenge that's happening, and then set up the scene, and then give the players time and space to describe how they're reacting to this, describe what they're going to want to do. And in general, players are going to choose what their actions are, what they're going to do to investigate or resolve the challenge. They have full control over what their heroes do and how they do it, but the lore master is responsible for kind of managing the world, right? Not any different from normal role-playing, but it's the setup and turning over control to the players is a really important component of what we're trying to do here. The notable exception is that scenes that require the application of the rules for combat council or journey are going to be just a little bit different than other types of situations. So if there's combat, that's going to be a little bit more detailed and gritty. Then council is a specific type of thing, and then journeys are kind of overland travel type of things. There's a note here in the book, the passage of time. Time passes at different rates in the One Ring. One evening spent playing may detail a single day in the life of an adventurer, or it could skim over a month or more of their career. During most adventuring phase sessions, gameplay is articulated in shorter focused scenes that require players to describe in detail what they do. Time passes somewhat slowly, with the players often keeping track of what happens every single day, with the exception of prolonged or time-consuming events like journeys or sieges. Time passes more quickly during a fellowship phase, which is the thing I haven't talked about yet. We had adventuring phases and fellowship phases. During the fellowship phase, the lore master and the players adopt a broader approach to narration. This is best suited when dealing with endeavors that occur off-screen. Weeks or months may pass before a new adventuring phase begins, and a special type of fellowship phase also deals, such as Yule, also deals with the advancement of the chronology of the game, the tale of years. So the fellowship phase, so when an adventuring phase is concluded, a fellowship phase starts with the players narrating what their characters do when they finally return from their adventuring to rest for a while. It is now the lore master's turn to act reactively by listening to the players' propositions and wishes and making sure that the rules are correctly applied. During a fellowship phase, the players present to the lore master their ideas and intentions, for example, choosing where they are going to rest and deciding what they will do while they are there. So during this phase, the players choose one or more undertakings and let them perform downtown activities directly affecting the gameplay. Usually an adventuring phase will last 2 or 3 sessions of play, followed by a fellowship phase wrapping up neatly what has happened thus far in the adventure. After a few games, what happens in the 2 distinct phases of the game will become more and more closely interrelated. So for example, the events arising during the adventure phase lead the players to make certain choices during the following fellowship phase. In turn, the lore master will find it easy to tie the next adventuring phase into what happened during the previous fellowship phase. The result is an epic that grows out of the ongoing lives of the player heroes and their deeds. So this game will work best when the GM and the players of the lore master and the players are fully engaged and passing the responsibility for the narration back and forth so that everybody is involved in the storytelling. Which again, one of the things that I really like about this game and the way it's been defined. So one of the things that everybody wants to know when jumping into a new system is, hey, how do I resolve actions? How do I do things, right? How do I make things happen? And so there are dice. I showed those to you a little bit earlier. Let me pull a couple of these out real quickly and let you see them. There we go. So we have, it's a fairly standard D6. Pull back where you can see it. There's a 1, a 2, 3. It's neatly formatted. Like, I really like what they've done. 4, 5, but then the 6 is a little different. The 6 has a little T symbol on it. That is I believe it's the Tingor symbol. What do they call it for sure? The Elvish symbol T. They don't actually name it. Thought it was the Tingor symbol, but I could be mistaken. Interesting that they don't actually give me the name for it right here in the dice rolling, so that's fun. And then all the D6s look like that. They all have the T on the 6 side. Then we have a special, it's a D12. One of the things I love about this game is I love rolling D12s. I don't know, there's just something about them, right? So you start with the 1, very standard. 6s and 9s are underlined, which is great, goes all the way up to 12. But then we have, instead of an 11 and a 12, it's 1 through 10. And then we have, pull that word back where you can see it, we have the Eye of Sauron. And we have, it's the worst result possible. And then we also have the Gandalf rune, which is there. So you have a Gandalf rune on one side. So that's the best result possible. The Gandalf rune is the greatest result you can get. When the die comes up showing that rune, the action succeeds regardless if the total result of the roll was enough to match or beat the target number or not. The Eye of Sauron icon is considered the worst result. When the feat dice comes up showing the Eye of Sauron, the feat die result counts as a 0. Okay, so but before I get into it any further, let me back up and kind of explain how and why you would roll the dice. There are no turns. The Lord of the Rings takes form of a continuous conversation among the playing group. There are no turns. The dialogue alternates between the lore master and the players who collaborate in bringing to life a series of scenes. The main way for the players to participate in a scene is simple. All they have to do is tell the lore master what the player heroes are doing, how they intend to do it. In game terms, this statement of intent is called taking an action. Once the players are done describing their chosen action, the lore master proceeds to evaluate whether to grant them what they wish, simply based on how they tried to achieve it, or if the circumstances require a die roll. Once the players are done describing their chosen action, the lore master proceeds to evaluate that. So the One Ring dice, we have this special dice, the 6-sided and 12-sided. Obviously, you can use your own 6 and 12-sided dice. It's not a big deal. The 11 is the Eye of Sauron, the 12 is the Gandalf rune, and you can use a normal 12-sided die. It's no big deal. But I really like the dice. I think they're super cool. I like anything that helps improve immersion in my game is something that I'm a big fan of. But obviously, dice are expensive, so use what you've got. When to roll, to put it simply, the lore master should ask for a die roll only if there is a possibility that a player's chosen action might fail. If the description of an action does not leave any doubts about its outcome, there's no need to make a roll. But that's not all there is to it. Resorting to a roll should be considered exclusively if the action or its goal fall into one of the following instances. 1. Danger. Roll if the action is dangerous. If the player hero does not risk anything by failing, no need to roll. Knowledge. So roll if the action aims to obtain information that is not readily or immediately available. If the knowledge the heroes are looking for is not secret or otherwise hidden, do not roll. Right? And 3rd, manipulation. Roll if the action intends to influence one or more uncooperative lore master characters. If what the heroes ask of the lore master characters matches their own motives, no need to roll. They'll go along with it. So breaking it down, scenes work as follows. 1, the lore master describes the situation requiring the players to make decisions. 2, the players investigate the situation considering their options. Once decided, they choose their action and describe it to the lore master. And 3, the lore master evaluates the plan of the players and adjudicates whether to just say yes and grant them what they want or to ask for a die roll. Once the necessity for a die roll has been established, it must be determined who is going to make the roll and what ability is most appropriate. So determining who is making the roll is easy in the case of actions chosen by players, but it can be less so if the roll is being made as a reaction to something described by the lore master. In general terms, It is highly advisable to have a single player make a roll except when something involves everyone in the group. To do so, the players simply choose the player hero who is best suited to the task, eventually applying the rules for support. The ability to use depends mostly on the type of roll. So for skill rolls, which is the most common type of actions, they're required whenever a player hero attempts to do something that can be accomplished using one of the 18 skills in their character sheet. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Combat rolls, when involved in a fight, they rely mostly on their combat proficiencies to make attack rolls and on protection rolls to avoid being injured. And shadow tests. The corrupting effect of the shadow can be resisted by making valor and wisdom rolls prompted by sources such as dread, sorcery, and greed. Once the correct ability has been determined, proceed to make the roll employing its numerical rating. All abilities that can be used to make a roll are given a value from 1 to 6, matching the 6-sided die. So roll 1 feat die, which is the 12-sided die, plus a number of success die, the 6-sided dice, equal to the rating of the appropriate ability. Roll only the feat die if the rating is 0. So add up the numerical results on all dice, comparing the total to the target number associated with the rolled ability. So in general terms, if the rolled total is equal to or greater than the target number, the roll is a success. Otherwise, it has failed. So you're potentially adding the result of let's say you've got a rating of 2, you're going to be rolling 2d6 and 1d12, and you're going to have some number between 3 and 24. No, sorry, in 22, because if you roll the Gandalf rune, then it's kind of a success automatically regardless. Some rules state explicitly what happens in the game terms in the case of a failure or success. Combat, for example, or the rules for journeys, while other situations require some more creativity from the players and the lore master. In any case, the consequences of both a successful and failed roll always determine a well-defined change in the gameplay. As a rule, players only have one attempt at anything that is resolved with a die roll. Whether they succeed or fail, they have done their best. As far as skill rolls are concerned, if the lore master allows it, a failed action can be attempted again by the same player hero if the failing player hero tries again using a different skill, effectively representing a different approach to the same problem. Which I love that. I love, hey, man, I wasn't able to do this with brute force. Maybe I'm going to do this with some creativity. Changing the approach and trying again. I love that that's built in. We talked about how to read the dice. How to read the success dice. Success dice are the 6-sided dice, 1 through 6. In addition, a success icon, the Elvish symbol T, appears along with the number 6. Success die are always rolled with a single feat die. Add the results on all success die to the result of the feat die with any T icons rolled indicating a superior result on a success. You can have degrees of success. All abilities used in the game are associated with the target number. Most rolls made by the player heroes are made against 3 attribute target numbers based on the rating they have in strength, heart, and wits. So during character creation, the players generate 3 target numbers, 1 for each attribute, putting the hero's fundamental capabilities right in front of the player's eyes. Each attribute target number is equal to 20 minus its corresponding attribute score. Feels a little bit like Fate Gogan, but it's fine. We're subtracting instead of adding in this case, but it's fine. We're coming up with a target number. Basically, the better you get at something, or the stronger your attribute, the lower the target number becomes. So you calculate target number as part of character creation, and it's just there on the sheet, so you don't have to calculate it in real time. So I appreciate that. Then your skills are adding dice, basically. So what you're calculating on the fly is always additive, never subtractive, which is good. Calculating target numbers by subtracting the attribute scores from 20 results in difficulty thresholds that are appropriate to medium to long campaigns, as they present a challenge to inexperienced individuals, but hold up well as those same characters advance in proficiency. For shorter campaigns or one-shot games, the players and the lore master may agree to derive the target numbers by subtracting their attributes from 18 instead, basically giving you a little bit of a boost early on for playing, which makes sense. A roll result that achieves its target number or results in the Gandalf rune and also produces 1 or more T icons is an outcome of superior quality. Perhaps a musician performs particularly well, or a lookout spots enemies at a longer distance. An orator succeeds in galvanizing a larger audience. The greater the number of success icons rolled, the better. If no T icons were scored, the action was successful but didn't achieve anything beyond the bare minimum. If a single T was scored, then the player hero's accomplishment was out of the ordinary, a great success. But if 2 or more were scored, the result was absolutely exceptional and memorable, an extraordinary success. So when making skill rolls, if a finer level of detail is desired, players can specify what their superior result means by spending their T icons to trigger a number of special results. So for each T icon rolled, a player hero can choose one of the options listed on the special skill success table. You can cancel a failure. So if a skill roll involves multiple players, you can help another player who failed. You can add 1 additional success, right? So if an action requires multiple successes to be achieved, you score an extra success. You may gain insight, so additional information, not necessarily related to the task at hand. You can go quietly, so maybe you achieve your goal noiselessly or without otherwise attracting attention. You can make haste, so you can complete the attempted task in a shorter time. Or you can widen your influence and influence more people than otherwise. So those are just some examples of what you can spend those on. Die roll modifiers. You can have favored rolls. A favored roll happens when a player hero possesses a special affinity for a task. So when making a favored roll, players roll 2 feat dice instead of 1, keeping the better result among the 2. Typical sources of favored rolls are a player hero's favored skills and several cultural virtues. You also can have ill-favored rolls, which is the opposite, in which case you roll 2 feat dice and then keep the worst result. It is possible to be both favored and ill-favored for different reasons, then just resolve the roll normally. It's effectively the same as advantage and disadvantage in 5th Ed D&D. I think this is a great opportunity to kind of showcase the character sheet just a little bit. So let me see if I can pull this up. Really wish I had printed this out for display online. So this is kind of what we're looking at here. That's kind of the way the character sheet looks. See if I can pull it up really quickly and just share it with you though. Should have done this in advance, but I kind of found out that I was streaming at the last second. So here we go. I'm going to see if I can grab this. We've got downloads. There we go. Character sheet, fillable character sheet. Perfect. I'll pull up a Hobbit sheet. Let me share this with you really quickly. Okay, we'll flip over here. You should be able to hopefully see the character sheet better now. So this is a Hobbit character sheet. The others are just a little bit different. So like I've got an elf sheet here. I don't see. I'm not seeing immediately what the difference are, but anyway. So we've got the. This is a fillable one, so this is a really cool character sheet. It's just freely downloadable from the website. Here, let me show you. So if you go to the Free League Publishing, go to the One Ring game, and then downloads. So you've got different sheets and stuff that are out here, which is really cool. So this is what we're going to talk about for a minute. I'm going to go through and kind of explain how the different areas work. So these are your attributes. So this is where you're going to write the target number. So you're going to have a rating here for strength, heart, and wits. And then the target number is going to be 20 or 18 minus that rating, right? So that's how we're going to set those target numbers. And then underneath strength, heart, and wits, we're going to have different skills, for example. They'll be underneath those areas. And those are things that we're going to be able to have. So let me pull up the correct part. Actually, I'd probably look this up in the abbreviated rules from the starter kit. Might be a little bit quicker and easier to get into this. Characteristics. There we go. Attributes. Player with high strength score can be tough and fit, or quick and alert, or physically attractive or imposing. Every aspect of an adventure that relies on vigor or physical strength is there under strength. Heart is a capacity for emotion, empathy, and enthusiasm. Wits is cleverness, attentiveness, ingenious. Anything that requires you to be sharp-witted, sensible, or wise is wits. Talks about the target numbers, distinctive features. There we go. Distinctive features can be right up here to kind of describe the aspects of their build or temperament. And then the skills. Almost every action requires skill. A number of skills are marked as favored. So this is the box to the left. You'll check that box if it's favored. Favored skills highlight those abilities that come more naturally to the player hero, but that also means effectively that you're going to roll those skills with advantage. Those become favored rolls. Each of the skills, like I said, belongs to one of the 3 categories. Combat proficiencies, which are these weapon categories, express how well player heroes conduct themselves when engaged in battle. Rolls made using combat proficiencies are resolved in the same way skill rolls are, rolling a feat die and a number of success die equal to the rank possessed. Rolling only the feat die with a rank of 0. And again, they are under strength on purpose. Endurance, hope, and parry. Endurance, hope, and where's parry? Interesting. Oh, there it is. Parry under shield. Cool. These additional stats are connected to the hero's main attribute scores. Endurance and hope are the fundamental resources that keep the adventure going. Endurance points are lost when engaging in strenuous activities, while hope points are spent voluntarily by players when they try to overcome their limits. I'm not going to spend any time going into what the individual skills do. I think that's pretty reasonably straightforward. When we fill out the sheet, though, there's a number of different ways we can look at the character sheet. So one of the things that I've seen, for example, is if you have a favored skill and you're trying to do something reasonable with that favored skill, I may not make you roll because that's already something you're good at. So you're going to have an advantage to doing that in a situation where otherwise you might have to make a roll, right? And so that's something you can use to kind of shortcut things just a little bit. It is possible for a player here to attempt something under favorable circumstances or employing particularly beneficial talents, so you may be granted a bonus in the form of additional success dice. Most commonly, bonus success dice are gained by spending hope or by the effect of a number of cultural virtues. Enchanted artifacts like magic rings and cloaks and ancient spells and uncanny powers can allow a player hero to exceed the possibility of mere mortals, which may give the bonus to skill rolls as well. There are a handful of conditions, specifically miserable, weary, and wounded. The oppressing burden of the Twilight of the Third Age is perceived as player heroes as represented in the game by their shadow rating. Heroes gain shadow points in many ways over the course of their adventures. When their shadow rating matches or exceeds their current hope score, they become miserable. The shadow path there. So when a miserable hero is making a roll, if the feat die shows the Eye of Sauron icon, the action fails regardless of the total roll. The resistance of the player heroes is represented in game terms by their endurance score. Heroes can lose endurance in many ways. For example, as a consequence of receiving a blow in combat or straining excessively while carrying a heavy burden, when their endurance drops to a level equal to or lower than their load score, they become weary. When a weary hero is making a roll, all the success dice that come up showing a result in an outlines number, 1, 2, or 3. So this is back to these dice again really quickly. The 3, actually, hold on. Let me switch back to this view. make me bigger really quickly. So this 3, see how it's kind of outlined? It's a little bit bolder. The 4 is just a solid line. And so that's one of the ways in which they have specifically made these dice for this purpose. So if you're weary and you roll a 1, 2, or 3, those are zeros. So you have a 50% chance of a 0 on each of those dice if you're weary. Wounded. Serious injuries can cause a hero to become wounded. When losing and recovering endurance is an everyday occurrence, being wounded is more serious. Heroes are most often wounded in combat. Wounded heroes who remain active risk being knocked out of combat and recover lost endurance points more slowly. Okay. So here's the section on the character sheet in the main book. Going through that. Talks about the dice roll procedure. The die roll procedure. Once the necessity to roll dice has been determined, follow these steps, which we've already gone through. We've got lots of nice summaries in the book. It's really well done. We have a glossary of game terms in here as they're describing how the character sheet works with the different sections, which is nice. See if there's anything we missed. You've got armor, if you choose to wear armor, the attributes, target numbers. Calling. A calling is what motivates player heroes to seek a life of adventure. There are 6 different callings to choose from, each one exemplifying a different adventurous drive. Player heroes could be captains, champions, messengers, scholars, treasure hunters, or wardens. And then you can build your character concept around that. Distinct features and cultural blessings. Break things down as you're building your character, and that'll depend a little bit upon your ancestry or your race. It's heroic culture. What culture do you belong to? The 6 playable cultures are Bardings, Dwarves of Durin's Folk, Elves of Linden, Hobbits of the Shire, Men of Bree, and the Rangers of the North. There may be other options in some of the other regional source books. I have not looked to that extent yet. Load is the weight encumbrance of the gear carried, which may limit their performance. Parry score reflects their ability to deflect or in any way avoid an incoming blow. The parry score is listed next to the shield, not surprisingly. Rewards are pieces of war gear of superior craftsmanship granted as an award after their deeds. The accumulation of shadow points and the shadow path. This suggests that individual path heroes will follow if they fail to resist the shadow's influence. You can have a shield, you can have skills, skill categories. Standard of living, your cultural level of prosperity, any treasure you've gotten. These are the types of things. Pretty basic, but it's a pretty interesting character sheet. So when you get into creating your characters, you're going to pick the culture, then you start calculating the different things, and you're going to pick a lot of options based upon this. There's a whole section in here about how to pick, how to do character creation, which is a lot of fun. Definitely going to skip over that for right now. You've got starting gear, rewards, etc. to help build that out. I want to kind of get a little bit more. Oh, there's a big section of the characteristics. I want to get a little bit more into like the adventuring. So, how an adventuring phase works, how a fellowship phase works. Let's talk about an adventure. I don't remember if there is an starting adventure in here, or if I need to. There's a whole section on the world. Eriador, the Shire, Lake Evandem, all based upon the maps that we have available to us. They have notes in here about dealing with a little call out, the big and the little, how to manage hobbits next to bigger folk. There's lots of great adventure about the locations you can go to. So even if you know Lord of the Rings fairly well, this does a good job of kind of calling out very specific places you can go and giving you system-oriented ways of interacting with some of the things that you may have ideas for, right? Fellowship phase, very short section, and then the Lore Master section. So running the game, how to handle scenes, how to frame the scene. They really walk you through, as a Lore Master, how to do this well. So this full reference book is really fantastic for learning that sort of stuff. The starter guide has a very small rule book to help you just kind of jump in and get started. It talks through just basics of how to start the game, how to do action resolution, which we've already covered. A little bit of an overview on the characteristics and skills on the character sheet, how to manage the combat proficiencies and the different attributes, and then a little bit about adventuring. So read just a little bit about it, see if there's anything new here. The introduction scene, the end of a session. If the session ends without the players reaching a satisfactory conclusion, gameplay will resume at a later date with another session. When the playing group meets again, the Lore Master starts by summarizing what happened. Yeah, imagine that. Turns out that's something that Lorelink is really good at helping with. So that's a great reason to use Lorelink to manage sessions for a game like this. Some details about combat. Oh yes. So these like coaster-looking things that I showed you earlier. Back that up so the light catches it. Because my light is a little bit behind my camera, so these have stances on them. So open stance, forward stance, defense stance, rearward stance. These are combat stances, and you put forward the one that you're going to be using. Stances is an important part of combat, so all player heroes select whether they will fight the round in close combat or ranged combat. In close combat, you can choose a stance, and how you're gonna manage the situation. You can resolve attack rolls, endurance loss, those sorts of things. And this is covered here at a very high level compared to the main book, but it's more than enough to get you started. And then adventures. The Conspiracy of the Red Book. This volume contains 5 adventures to be played using the pre-generated characters provided in the boxed set, and while they can be played as separate scenarios, the adventures can be linked together, allowing the players to explore the width and breadth of the Shire and beyond. They all take place in or around the year 2960 of the Third Age, or 1360 by Shire reckoning, though the date is flexible and the Lore Master can adjust if necessary. Okay, so this, I'm gonna go through this here really quickly, and then maybe I'll pull up Lorelink and start hashing out some of this. Using the pre-generated characters, included in the box are 9 pre-generated characters. I kind of walked you through those earlier. Each select one of the 6 hobbits, and the Lore Master should allow the players the opportunity to review each of these and choose one they'd like to play. As the story unfolds, 2 new heroes will become available as player heroes. The Lore Master is encouraged to keep these new heroes a secret until they become available, so as not to spoil the surprise for players. Oops, my bad. Mad Baggins is at it again and has gathered in Bag End a new cabal of adventurous spirits, whom he has named the Conspirators of the Red Book, the player heroes. In an effort to gather notes for his book, he has asked these friends, under the promise of payment and a bit of adventure, to help him confirm some important details about the history of the Shire and its people. The first and most important item is a map of the Shire that is kept locked away in the Matham House at Michael Delving, which he believes was sketched by none other than the old Took himself. These conscripted conspirators will need to travel there, slip past any watch without arousing suspicion, and pilfer the ancient map before returning to Bag End. Part 1, Off into the Blue. The first part of this adventure is little more than a hobbit walking party, an easy entry into the life of the errant adventurer. You have a couple different encounters, and then Part 2, Mathams of Michael Delving, setting up from Waymeet. The conspirators will arrive at Michael Delving by the end of the day. Here they will begin their adventure in earnest, having to confiscate bounders, confuse custodians, and face curious canines. So it's all about getting into Michael Delving and then slipping out of town. And then there's an epilogue. Once the conspirators return to Bag End, the lore master should read the following text, blah, blah, blah. So, goodness. I'm not sure how to break this down, but let's fake it. So I'm going to open up LoreLink, which, surprise, I already have open. I just need to pull it up. And we're going to create a new campaign. Let's see. I feel like I'm going to just call this the Conspiracy of the Red Book. We may pull all of these different plans in here. Okay. It's the One Ring 2nd edition. This is the starter pack adventure. We do have, in fact, have an introduction that's written here for us. So let's just type out some of that. That's all I'm going to type for now. I'll go ahead and create this. Let's see. Let's go ahead and drag this out here. I want to create a new one. I'll deal with that later. It's fine. New expansion, Realms of the Three Rings, was just announced today. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that over on the YouTube chat. Really appreciate it. That's super exciting. Yeah, I feel like I should probably share some of the different source books I have, but I feel like for a first stream about the One Ring, we should probably stick with the basics, but thank you very much for talking about that. That's super, super cool. All right. Back to here. So I've created the campaign, The Conspiracy of the Red Book, One Ring, blah, blah, blah. So now what we're going to do, I've got a couple different things. So what I'm going to do, again, we have all these different categories and ways that I can handle things. It's not a great perfect fit, but what I'm going to do for right now is create a session for each of these really short adventures. So this is The Conspiracy Most Cracked. So this is the first short adventure in the path here. And I'm going to create it as a session because presumably each one of these would be a session, although I mean potentially could get through multiples of these in a single session, which would be totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. A session is just a holding container for things that you want the players to accomplish in a single unit. So nothing says this session has to be a single day in real time, right? So that's how I'm going to handle this. The conspiracy most cracked, and then we're going to have some different events inside of here. There's going to be a few things. So we've got 2 different parts, which I don't have an easy way of managing, although I might tag them. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to call this as wild as that is a long tag. It's fine. We're going to then create a off into the blue tag. We're going to give that parent tag, and then we're going to create another one for part 2, which is just kills me to spell Michael Delving differently than my name. All right. Okay, so now that I've got those, I can go ahead and create some events. So, part 1 off into the blue. Let's look at this. So this all starts in bag, and yes. No. So this doesn't happen. So this is actually has an event. So let me just stub out some events, and then we'll move forward from there. So this is actually name of the event, the name of the section. And then there's going to be a read aloud. Typing faster than my fingers. All right. The first part of the adventure, it will take the player heroes over the river of Bywater and to the village of Waymeet, where they'll need to avoid local gossip mongers. Then I want to read aloud the following. Oops. So, this is the Lore Master text intended to be read aloud. So after quite a long walk under stars that have come out blazing and bright after an afternoon of heavy rain, you finally come to the round green door of Bag End, the home of the strange and famous Bilbo Baggins. Standing there upon the mat, you find yourself surrounded by distant relations. It seems as though Bilbo called for a collection of cousins to join him this evening. Just as one of you is about to ring the bell, the door is pulled open, and you see standing in the front hall none other than Master Baggins himself. offers each of you an energetic greeting and quickly ushers you in with a plethora of welcomes, thank yous, and lovely to see yous. Now we fix all my typos. All right, we're in good shape to save that. So we go off into the blue as the first event. So let me pull this open. Now I'm going to tag it as part 1 off into the blue. Okay. Which means that when I click on this, it has all the associated events in there. Cool. Events. Off into the blue. Perfect. So now there's going to be a whole bunch of read aloud text. I'm not going to bother typing any of the rest of it there. There's going to be another event, which we're going to create. The next phase of this is going to be getting across the water. And this is where, let's go to the important bit. The player heroes must now consider their circumstances and find a solution. Okay, so let's back up. The morning dawns bright and clear, perfect for a nice walk about the Shire. The first true obstacle reveals itself soon after they leave Overhill. The water has become swifter with recent rain, and the shallow ford where Bilbo told them to cross looks a bit more treacherous. Now, what are they going to do? They're there, it's treacherous, how are they going to get over? There's notes to the lore master here. Basically, crossing the water requires an athletics roll. Player heroes look for other means of crossing. A successful scan roll allows them to spot a large hollow log. There's ways to retrieve the log. There's a couple different options there. Dry or soaked, the hobbits will eventually find a way and reach Waymead after a good walk on the East Road. Okay. Not going to write everything down on stream. You don't want to sit and just watch me type. But again, I'm going to go ahead and tag this. Come back in, create another event. There's one more event in part 1, so I'm going to go ahead and create this. Well met in Waymead. Waymead itself is quite active on the evening when the player heroes arrive. As the tables set outside the walking party inn are still occupied, thanks to the fair weather and lengthening daylight hours. Locals are polite, though very curious about what brings a crowd of hobbits so diverse this far west at such a late hour. Save that. Well met Waymead. Again, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to tag it. Now I'm going to come into my session, Conspiracy Most Cracked. I'm going to add a few things. So I want to add events. We're going to add that event. That event. And that event. That event. Okay, cool. There's my events. I'm going to go ahead and Oh, so I'm going to add a location just for fun. We're going to add a few locations. So we're technically in the Shire, right? So I'm actually going to call this the Shire. And that'll be my starting point. Now, we're going to have we start in Bag End, which is in Overhill, right? So we've got a few locations. We have Overhill, Bag End. We have Waymeet. We have technically we have the river. The river could be a location. After Waymeet, they are going to get to Michael Delving. And then inside of Michael Delving, they're going to encounter the Matham House. Okay, so now I have inside of the Shire, I have all these different locations and things. And I have, interestingly enough, inside of the book, I have a sketch right here. I don't know if you can quite see that, as small as the window is, but there's a little tiny bit of a sketch there. So I can always scan that or try to find it and put that in as an image and then map that to these different locations, which would be pretty cool. So what I can do then is come back into these events. Off into the blue, we're going to go ahead and associate this with a location. Back end. And then Waymeet, we're going to come here, we're going to associate that with Waymeet. And then in the session, we're going to come into the session and we're going to go to locations and we're going to associate a few locations. Technically, Bag End and Overhill and Waymeet all happen here. Technically, all of these locations that I just tagged. So I can actually come into these locations and say part 1. Part 1. This is part 2. Part 2. This is part 2. And so I can come back into the session because the session is for the whole thing. And I don't strictly have to do this because I've got them tagged. I wouldn't, strictly speaking, have to do this. But if I want all of everything related to this to show up, I can do this. So now all of the first part is in here. Obviously, I need to add some more text to it, but we're getting really close. So there are going to be a handful of, let's just stub these out really quickly. I won't do any typing. I'm just going to go ahead and create the events for the second part. So the first one is this is the name of part 2, but again, like the other one, there's a bunch of stuff, a bunch of text directly under that. So we're going to go ahead and create this. So Matham's Michael Delving needs to be tagged as part 2. I'll go back to the events. Next event is Burglars in Michael Delving. I just really have a hard time misspelling that. Okay. It's not misspelling, but you get it. All right. Oh, that one's burglars and Michael Delving. There we go. And so I want to tag that part too, but also I actually want both of these to associate with the location Michael Delving. So now we're connecting everything together, right? Okay, so if I go to the location Michael Delving now, we're going to see that there's a child location, which is the Matham House, and it is used by the session and then these two events that occur technically inside of the location of Michael Delving. Now, if I come up here, because I want to show you LoreLink, if I come up here and go to view mode, this all becomes much simpler, right? There's all that noise related to editing is gone, and I can kind of just see those things that I've created. So I'm going to come back in edit mode really quickly and finish creating these. So next up is the Matham House. It's an event. Matham House inside and out. So a couple things are going to happen here. We're going to come here and we're going to tag this part 2. And then we're going to add the location, yeah, of the Matham House location. Boom. And then the next one is slipping out of town. That is an event. And so slipping out of town comes to here. I'm going to add part 2. We're going to add a location. Because they're still technically in Michael Delving when they're trying to slip out of town. Let's see. Okay, let's put across the West Front. Okay. Perfect. Then that's done. So now I can come into the session and we can add all this stuff into the session. All right, and let's go ahead and add the last of these events. And the last one. Okay, now what this is going to allow me to do now that I've got these in a session, as we're going through and doing things, right, I'm going to be able to check them off. I'm going to be able to say, oh, we did that one, we did that one, we did that one as we go through and mark them off as completed, which is super cool. When you've visited a place or once you've been there, we can do that. And the other thing that I can do, if I come in here, I have the ability to share these things. So I can fully share, like existence should let the players know that this place exists, but don't give them a lot of details, or I can fully share all the details of a location, for example. That means that when I run this, I would be able to invite the players into LoreLink to see the locations and events as things unfold, which can be a lot of fun. Especially the location. So then I would want to add notes to the locations that I would want the players to see, but maybe keep some of the extra details of the events hidden so they don't kind of know what's going on from that standpoint. Now there's a final section here, which is the epilogue. I'm just going to create the epilogue as a final event. But I'm going to really quickly peek ahead because I'm guessing that there's an epilogue for each of these. So I am correct. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Okay, there we go. epilogue, a conspiracy was cracked. I'm just going to write it like this to differentiate it from the other epilogues from the other sections by name, even though I'm also going to do it in other ways. It could be specifically by tagging it here. And then we'll come into the session and we're going to go ahead and add the epilogue into the session. Cool. Boom. There is the outline now of that first session. Some things that I would like to do to this, of course, is upload the map, at which point I could come into the Shire. I could actually attach the map here to the Shire and drop pins for the different locations, which should be fun. And I would, of course, want to add all the text into the different areas so that I can reference everything just from here. But I would actually come into the session then, and I might have to give myself a little bit of a note. So, for example, we're going to start with that's the starting event. So I'm going to start there and then move on from that point. I could say that this is active, and we're still planning because we're still working, but I can change the status. If I schedule a game, I can put that in, all those sorts of things. But the session is where I start. It contains all the pieces that I need to run the event. Once all the text is copied in, I'll be able to literally just run this entire thing right here inside of LoreLink as we go through details, or if I want to pull in details that exist in the main book or in some of the other source books, I could actually add details to some of these locations, maybe to make my descriptions richer and make it a lot more interesting and engaging for the players, right? I can add details to those locations beyond what's just inside of this book, and things go really well like that. So anyway, this is a quick overview of how I would consider putting these starting adventures into LoreLink for the One Ring. Honestly, I would really like to run the One Ring at some point in time, so I'll probably end up putting maybe all of these. It's a pretty short book, but I'll at least put a handful of these in and maybe run these on stream for you at some point in time if there's interest in that. Sounds like 20 is interested in playing, so if I can find enough people to play and find people to watch, then maybe that's something we can do at some point in time. But I will definitely revisit the One Ring at some point in time. Hopefully you've gotten a little bit of an overview about how it works. And I think it's pretty straightforward. The character creation can be a little bit involved, but at least for this, we'll start with pre-gen characters, so that's pretty straightforward. So do let me know if you have any questions about it. Definitely something I want to get a little bit more into and play around with. I will continue fleshing out this campaign just a little bit inside of LoreLink. But anyway, that's a quick overview of the One Ring. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Really appreciate you joining us. If you have any questions about LoreLink, you can absolutely reach out to us on lorelink.com. If you want to know about more different types of systems that you can plan and manage inside of LoreLink, please go to lorelink.com, and we have examples on the site of different systems. We've got, I think, like 20 different system examples out there, including links to videos where we've done session planning and have done live plays and that sort of thing. So we do this Twitch stream every single week, so do come back next week. There's going to be more planning coming your way, and you can give us a quick follow. You can give us a follow here, but you can give us a follow on Blue Sky as well. We're very active out there, and would love to hear from you. So thanks for being here. Do check us out. Come back next week for another planning session, probably a completely different system, and we will talk to you later. Have a great evening.